Well, needless to say, this is a very special episode of Do Your Pod, but not in the classic sense, not like the Mr. Belvedere where the boy gets AIDS or anything. This is all about Tom Brady. And happy to have you on, Dave. Thanks for taking the time. And first of all, before we get into this at all, and there's a lot to unpack here, are you buying that this is in fact Brady's retirement?
Yeah, I mean, ESPN hasn't retracted it at all or even reported the other. Everyone who knows him says the Darlington guy is generally on point. I think I saw what you wrote, Jerry, which you said you thought Brady was going to announce it in his docuseries there, and maybe it leaked somehow. So I just think Brady's upset because he does like to craft his own message and doesn't like the fact it was released before him. But from everything I see, I think it's the real deal. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things about that too. I wrote Monday morning as we're recording this. I credit Toucher and Rich for this. Rich Shirton does their Twitter, and he's been a guest on this show. And he had this theory that, okay, so Brady films that final episode of the Man in the Arena, which every other episode came out like clockwork on Tuesday, except the 10th one, the one about the Bucs Super Bowl. So the season ends, he tapes his farewell, because of course he's going to want it on his own platform that he owns, and so they send it to ESPN Plus where the episodes air. Somebody sees it, contacts two ESPN employees who cover football, and so that's why Darlington and Schefter felt comfortable going with it, because they heard it literally from the goat's mouth.
Right.
This wasn't like some gardener who overheard a thing, or the kid who rings the register at TB12 Fitness. This is Brady in his own words. And so that's what all this message.
Didn't his own like social media have it up for like a second and then take it down? I thought like the TB12 like method or one of them had it. I read.
Okay. That
I could be wrong. I thought I read that somewhere, but who knows?
And there's someone's getting fired because
right. I could be wrong. I thought I saw that though.
Yeah. And my source on this that makes it as officially official as anything is Julian Edelman has a "thanks for the memories, babe" picture of Brady up, and he hasn't taken that down. I mean,
right.
if Edelman's going to know before Bruce Arians, and I love that aspect of it, that the Bucs are caught completely unawares by this, and Arians has to get asked by a national reporter about it. Like, what? This is news to me.
Is there truth to the fact too? And I saw a bunch of people like he gets a big payment like after what was it, February 4th or something?
Exactly. So he signed a 2-year deal, and then they extended him a year. And because nobody, least of all me, understands NFL contracts or how that all works, there's a $15 million payment that's due to him February 4th, which is Friday. So, he was going to drop the episode after he gets the check, and which makes perfect sense. Then monetize his little TV show, and then do the farewell press conference and all that stuff. So the only way he comes back is if it's out of spite.
Right.
Just
they
to get back
it,
at
right.
ESPN or whatever. So
yeah, he maybe he's not beyond that, but I do, from everything that you see with the reactions after, I think it looks pretty solid. Yeah, I will say I was surprised he did it. Obviously must have thought about it. I thought he'd leave more time, like after the sting of getting eliminated from the playoffs. Sometimes I feel like guys, a lot of times, make rash decisions because they don't want to go through another season. But maybe he knew this for a while. It was going to be his last one.
Yeah, but my experience is once you know that you're checked out of a place mentally, emotionally, or whatever, it's hard to imagine ever coming back. My most recent experience was after I talked to you about leaving WEEI, which, by the way, I announced on my own like WordPress page that I used for selling books. And Minahan was like, "Why didn't you let EI announce it?" I said, "Because I want to sell books." He's like, "Oh, all right, good point." Once you know that you see yourself out the door, it's really hard to ever get mentally back into it.
Jerry, if you say that's the case with EI, I'm sure that translates to Brady leaving the NFL in the most glorious career in the history of football.
The two equate one another because we're each the greatest that ever strapped on the headset or the helmet. So I want to talk about that. What your initial reaction was, and I thought it was like fascinating when you said that if it wasn't for Brady, Barstool basically doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly an element. There'd be a version of it, but we coincided, obviously, not just with the rise of the Patriots, really, but with the rise of Boston sports. And then everything that surrounded the Patriots, as you know, as well as anybody, it was always something. I mean, they were always bad. They were winning controversy. And we really became like the spearhead of defending the Patriots. And it wasn't just locally, but it became nationally because they're in the Super Bowl seemingly every year. And Barstool rose because of that. My profile rose because of that. And, people still ask like the most famous incidents, I would say, in Barstool's history. For me personally, it's probably going to jail over Deflategate, is getting carried out of the Super Bowl in handcuffs. So, there's been major things. And the way Roger Goodell has handled us has made it so the bigger we got and we became pretty big in the scale of media, we still had that outsider, underdog mentality, largely, I think, because of the way Goodell just handled the whole thing.
It's mind-boggling to consider. Like, okay, if in 2000, the Patriots war room and Dick Rabine stood up and said, no, I really, really want Tim Rattay.
Right.
And they get him and Bledsoe sticks around and the team is floundering or whatever, that Barstool maybe never takes off.
It definitely was like put it on stars. I should say the 3 incidents. I mean, Howitzergate. I've been involved with the police 3 times in 20 years, and they've all circulated around Tom Brady. It's crazy.
Yeah, so. I have too. I just want to be clear. His restraining orders say no, but his eyes still say yes.
Yeah.
Because the other aspect of that too, when we started out, I think one thing that really put like air underneath our wings was the Boston media, the newspapers. Kids Google the term newspaper, and the sports radio was still operating off the 90s playbook. So 2003, 2004, the Patriots are winning the second and third, and then the Red Sox come along the year later, and everything was still being covered like it was the 90s, and it was Loserville, and the guys who write for the Globe are smarter than Belichick or whatever. And then we came along and we were just being honest and saying, this is fucking awesome. And,
right.
And people were like, I remember people coming up to us and saying, I love it because the stuff that you guys write is the way I think, and I don't hear it in any other place.
And they never turned. I mean, it didn't matter how much they won, how many Super Bowls they were in. They were so negative all the time. And, even as you're saying it, you look at like LeBron, who's the fat guy who covers him from Cleveland on ESPN.
Yeah. Carries water for him constantly. I'm flaking on his name, but
so like nobody would know who that guy is if it wasn't he was the Cleveland guy when LeBron rose, and the fact that LeBron's always in the mix in the playoffs, he became kind of a household name because of that. So, we became the face of the Patriot fan base. And the Super Bowl is the biggest event we got. And the Patriots are in it every year. So it's we're right there with them doing media days, everything. It just made us much more of a household name for everybody because the Patriots are always there and Barstool is right there with them, really.
Yeah. And I think what you said about the controversies that always came up. And I mean, even, pre us, like the Tuck rule, oh, well, he's just lucky, because of that. Or they wanted the Patriots to get in there because they're called the Patriots and it's 9/11 or whatever. But, the Colts changing the rules in 2003. And then, of course, Spygate. Like, I think initially, I don't know what your reaction was. I remember me thinking, that's interesting. They pointed cameras at the sidelines. Didn't realize that it would be the biggest controversy in the history of
they've gone through so many controversies. You almost forgot the early controversies. Like, and I know you were on the same bit. Like, I hated Eric Mangini as much as I hated anybody. Now he's kind of like a side note because new enemies took his spot, but it was consistent. And again, they were always there. It's like nobody knows who Jackson Mahomes and Mahomes' girlfriend are if they're not winning. But the Chiefs start winning all the time. You start seeing these two bozos every time. Everybody knows who they are now. Like, if you looked at social media, outside of people praising Burrow, the number 1 or number 2 thing was people going at Mahomes' wife and Jackson Mahomes. So anytime you have a team that's consistently winning, they bring whatever baggage, or in our case, us, with them. And we were almost that. So again, it was always something. It literally with the Patriots was always something.
Yeah, I think in this case, I'm the Jackson Mahomes and you're the fiance.
I would hope to think we were a lot less annoying than those two, but a lot of people who don't like the Patriots would probably say no. I mean, I was trying to recount the story. It's almost amazing when you go back to it, but Elio is here. It's like, I think I chased Mike Kensel out of media day.
Is he here?
Yes, he is.
Yes. Let's go get Kensel. Mike Kensel, right? My name's Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports. Can we interview you?
No.
We want to ask you about whether you were on the sidelines the other
I can't
day.
comment on ongoing investigations.
But it's being leaked all over the place. Someone's commenting.
I can't comment.
Who's commenting? Walk away, man. Walk away.
He went behind a curtain and went directly on a plane to China. Like he literally, they shipped him to China after that. Kravitz, I remember he was sitting down eating lunch. Like I had hate in my eyes when I saw these people. I chased him out. Poor Sal Pal, I still think is in therapy, sees ghosts when he hears my name. So it was an ongoing, never-ending battle. It really was.
Yeah, why am I flaking on him? Hall of Fame defensive tackle for Tampa. Got arrested. Warren Sapp. He was at media day, and I asked him about his own quarterback when he won the Super Bowl in 2002, saying that he paid people to doctor the footballs for them. He paid the ball boys for that, and he just pretended he didn't hear anything about it. Yeah.
I asked Dilfer that at media day, and he said no. The media was telling me no questions to the media on media day. One of the all-time quotes. It's media day. Everyone's asking everybody, but the media was like, no, we don't take questions. It's media day. You're at media day.
So yeah, we were working for two different companies then, but we were unleashing like flamethrowers.
I told Belichick I'd kill some. That was one of my two. I had a two-part question with Belichick. A, do you remember me from Nantucket, which he did not at the time? And two, do you need anyone murdered? Because I'd kill him. He's like, and that became news, that question. But I was serious.
And that would have been the fourth visit from the police in your life. So you dodged that bullet. And yeah, I think ultimately having these controversies, or most of them are non-controversies, but I think that's really been good for business, good for the brand, because you have something to push back against. And I think all the time, like, imagine if if you had an emotional attachment to, say, the San Antonio Spurs. Oh, great. They went through a period where they won a lot. Nobody hated them, and no one had any problems with their superstars or whatever. And ultimately that just kind of got tiresome. And this is
the opposite of it's love and hate are closer than apathy, and nobody is apathetic to the Patriots. You love them or you hate them, and most hated them.
And with Brady too. So what was your emotional journey with him, just to use the lamest phrase I could think of? Because they draft this guy out of Michigan when you're a Michigan man, and did you have like an affinity for him when he was with the Wolverines?
I thought he was very good at Michigan. He was at Michigan when they had this time, the kid who was like Drew Henson. So he was there with Drew Henson, and Drew Henson was the ballyhooed kid. I mean, he was the number one recruit in the country. He was getting playing time, despite the fact that whenever Brady came in, he was better. And it was very obvious. I feel like they'd fall in the hole. Brady comes in, takes him back. But I wasn't, when they drafted him in the 6th round, I was definitely not, holy cow, we got this guy that's going to be unbelievable. But people forget the Patriots are so bad before that. They were such a joke franchise. It was hard to predict that they turned around. I remember the first Super Bowl, rather than doing content, I went home to watch it with my dad, because I'm like, they're never going to be back in the Super Bowl. So I'll watch this and see what happens. And then it was a long ride. I mean, even like I said, I've had roller coasters with him. I've heard mixed things about the original Howitzer blog, which was the earliest big controversy at the time. And then we continued to defend him and went to jail for him. And I don't have a relationship with him, but like if I saw him, he'd say hello and talk to me for a couple minutes. So listen, I was such a big Patriot fan and he's done so much. It's hard to imagine. But once he left the Pats, I wasn't one of those yahoos. I think I'm with you. I wasn't like rooting for him in Tampa. And I wanted to come back and do like a 10-day contract with the Patriots, but I don't like this Tampa chapter. I wish it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I've said this before, but it's anytime somebody breaks up with you, no matter how amicable the split is, even if you're part on good terms, it's human nature to want them to go to pot. You know, you don't want them living this fantastic life without you, this Instagram world where everything is sunsets with their hard hands around
Yeah,
it
right.
and be happier with their new person. And I think ultimately the reason he's leaving football is because he grew miserable in Tampa. It's the only thing that makes sense because he always said he'd play till he's 45. Well, he doesn't turn 45 till August. He said, if I suck, I'll retire. Well, he's the opposite of suck. He led the league in yards and touchdowns, completions and attempts. I can only think that it just was some kind of chaos out there that
Maybe AB finally got to him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't like that.
Yeah. Levante David's the linebacker. He's been with them longer than anyone. He's a 10-year veteran. And right after they lost, he said, well, there was a lot of turmoil on the team. He said, I love my teammates and stuff, but I just maybe think Bruce Arians' act got really old really fast.
Yeah, it could. It could. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that because, again, it just means that to beat the metaphor to death, he's in, he didn't like his new girlfriend as much as he liked us.
Weirdly, I'd be more okay if he went and played for somebody else because I just don't like Tampa Bay people trying to claim him when he's been there for like a cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The Steve Che's of the world. Like, shut up. We're going to fast forward and Steve Che and the Bucs are going to be a footnote. Like they're no part of Tom Brady's career. He was there. Yes, he got a Super Bowl. I get it. It cemented him to his credit. Like, all right, I just went and won somewhere else. But we got to remove the Bucs part of his career because, and now I may be more jaded because Steve Che, but I don't like anything about the Brady Bucs era at all.
Yeah. The people who show up at Gillette wearing the split jersey.
Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wow, we get 2 Christmases, right? I get to like my team and I get to love the guy who left it. And my loyalty is to the parent in the split who's still putting dinner on the table every night. And that's Belichick. He's still working hard. And it ultimately does this kind of, I mean, I guess I can't say it gives Belichick the upper hand because Brady won a Super Bowl, obviously, but isn't this kind of like redemption for
I think the future will be written for sure. But if you told me the situation now, which is, okay, you still have Belichick, Brady went and got a Super Bowl, but he's going to retire in 2 years, I would say, all right, well, I'm going to take Belichick. Now we got to see. I mean, the Patriots look pretty bad towards the end of the year. I love the quarterback. I love Mac Jones. But they're so far below now the Bills and I would say the Chiefs and I guess you gotta say the Bengals. But I have faith Belichick will fix that. We'll see. I think they have the most important piece of the puzzle. I think Mac Jones can beat those guys, but the defense look like they're 150 years old.
Oh yeah, the improvements need to be made, and they would need to be made even if Brady was still here. I guess just if you could go back to 2019, Dave, and say, all right, you got a future where Brady goes elsewhere and wins one, but then is done after 2 years. Would you still say, all right, good. I want him to leave and let's reboot this franchise?
Yes, I said yes just a second ago.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the Super Bowl because I don't think we weren't getting one with him. Like the team wasn't. I mean, they were already on a downward slide and they weren't rebuilding. Like he went to a much more talented team, but the trade almost isn't wins and losses. It's, can we say he played his whole career with us? That means a lot to me. I'd like to have that. Whether like it almost would be, you are never going to win. You're rebuild it, but you get to say Brady started and ended with you. That I may take that. I don't know.
Yeah,
like it really bothered me him leaving. Not bother me, like not him. I just don't like anyone else being able to gripe onto him being our guy. And I do think the more time goes by, like that'll be just an afterthought. But right now, like I don't like seeing Brady retires and he's in a Bucs uniform. To me, that's dishonest journalism.
Yeah. And nothing will bother me more maybe in my adult life than the film of that boat parade.
Right.
And him being drunk and deliriously happy in ways that he almost was never around here. Like all of a sudden he became this like real guy, like this relatable dude who just, hit the sauce too hard and was being human. And then the stunt with throwing the trophy. And it was like, okay, so now he gets to finally be himself. And he was a fraud here.
No, I
for
don't know
18
about that.
years, or
I don't know about that. I think it's just, I don't know. I mean, we don't have boat parades. We have duck boats. I don't know. I didn't get that vibe. I felt the same. I hated watching it. And this is what I'm saying. That bothers me. Like I wasn't, yay, Tom, you want to got one somewhere else. And I think as we talk it out, if you said, all right, the Patriots are done, they're never going to win with Belichick, but Brady played the whole career here, I probably would have taken that. I think I take that. But strictly from winning and losing, I think the Patriots made the right choice. And Belichick, throughout his career, it doesn't matter who the guy is, he'll get rid of you when he thinks you're done or it's in the better future of the franchise.
yeah, I had a buddy of mine yesterday at a bar, if you can picture that. And he's saying, but they didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan for him leaving. And my point was, because he trusts that he will figure it out. You know what I mean? Like has the balls to say, well, I'm not going to give this guy a 5-year deal and all the power and personnel, decisions or whatever. If he goes, we'll piece it together. And then he sits at 15 and Mac Jones comes to him. He took a chance. He gambled on himself. And now he's set for 20 years.
Yeah. And you look at guys who people have said Belichick's had, like Matt Castle, Brissett, Garoppolo, now Mac Jones. I mean, he's had guys, you don't know what those guys would have been if they stayed here and he built around Belichick, but he's consistently had quarterbacks that other people in the league at some point are like, oh, this guy's pretty good. So who knows?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, to your point, no plan. Well, he's proven over the last 20 years, he's had guys come up that other people identify. Oh, this guy can be a franchise quarterback. They leave New England. All bets are off when you leave New England. So who knows? And I think that goes to, well, I've already got 3 guys I think I can win with. I'll find another guy. And he did.
Sure. And at the same token, if Brady got drafted somewhere else, I don't know, San Fran, God forbid the Jets, I think he never becomes Tom Brady. I think he hangs out on somebody's roster for a while. Maybe he gets a shot because of injury or whatever, but there's no scenario where I picture that, he is in the conference championship every single year.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so, but I don't know. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. Like, that franchise is the worst, one of the worst, them, the Lions, whoever. He gets there and they're in the Super Bowl 2 years later. That's him and him alone. So you got to almost think wherever he ended up, he was going to make that big of an impact.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the larger point is great quarterbacks or potentially great quarterbacks get ruined a lot more often than
I would agree with that.
Again, the Jets, they're already in, heading into year 2 of doing it with Zach Wilson. They did it with Sanchez. They did it with, all the way back to, really Chad Pennington was last time they.
Well, yeah. And you look at the reverse with Stafford. I mean, the guy never won a playoff game. Mm-hmm. He's in the Super Bowl going from the Lions. But then the opposite side of that is certainly Burrow. I mean, the Bengals were the biggest joke there was.
Mm-hmm. So going back, was there a time when you realized, okay, Brady's special? I mean, was it in Michigan when there was a controversy between him and Henson?
No. I definitely didn't know. He had a big comeback, and I think the Orange Bowl, but it was probably the second year the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Like the first year, they win it. It's like, okay, what's going on? And then they win it the second year. Then they go back to back. It's like, all right, and then you really start paying attention. He never missed guys. Like towards the end of his career in the Patriots, I did think he was slowing down. Like he is just, we got so spoiled. He never missed guys. Like he just never missed them. He never made a bad throw. Maybe the Broncos game, there's like a couple games that hurt. me. The Broncos game, when they're going for the three-peat, I think they're the best team in the NFL. And he threw the interception that Ben Watson ran the guy down. They were so much better than the Broncos. I think the Broncos had like 7 yards total offense that game. Special teams was a disaster. They should have won the Super Bowl that year. The game we blew against the Colts, that game killed me 20-3. They went for it, which is the right decision, and didn't get it. They would have won the Super Bowl that year. That game crushed me in 18-1. Those are the 3. But as I've always said, when you're in humongous games every single year, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. They could have beat the helmet catch. They could have won. They should have lost the Seahawks. If they run the ball, there's no chance we're stopping them. And obviously 28-3 if they make decisions. So you have when you're in that many games and the league is as close as it is, you win some, you lose some. You could have beaten the Eagles. So I'm at peace. I never want Peyton Manning to beat us. Like that hurt me almost more than the Giants. Like if we could have held on, Peyton Manning never wins the Super Bowl on the Colts. That would have made me very happy.
Yeah, those will always bother me because they elevated him to a status he didn't deserve.
Correct.
He actually should have fewer than Aaron Rodgers did.
Yeah, he should have won that, and the Broncos won. They won despite him.
Yeah,
they the worst quarterback. Yeah, he couldn't throw the ball 5 yards at that point in his career. So
yeah, they lugged him around like Weekend at Bernie's, and the first thing he did when he retired was reference the pizza company and the beer company that sponsors him. Whereas the following year, Brady wins, and the first thing he did was hug his mom, who was undergoing chemo and wearing a kerchief. And that to me was everything about those two guys. Real quick about Michigan, fun fact, because everything goes back to Boston sports. There's a rumor that I believe is true that Brady was getting screwed over because George Steinbrenner is a big Ohio State fan. So he was offering Henson a chance to skip the minor leagues and go right to playing third base for the Red Sox.
Oh, I don't know about the Red Sox, but you mean
to play for the Yankees.
Yeah, no, that was
like an
true.
Incentive to leave Michigan. So they were like, well, we got to keep starting Henson over Brady because we're losing.
That's college football. I mean, Henson was legitimately the #1 recruit in the country. You don't get those guys unless you promise them playing time, and you can't just bench him. It's not so. He was that big of a recruit. He really was. But no, there's not a singular moment when I was like, oh my God, this guy's great. It was just almost the accumulation of everything he did. It was just perfect. And I mean, you don't realize it watching it going back, but remember John Madden, they should knee the ball against the Rams. And then they come out and they get in field goal range. So it was just the accumulation. I think it was second Super Bowl where it's like, okay, I didn't realize at the time, but we have the best quarterback going right now.
And somehow 20 years of him up here and 2 years down in Tampa, it just doesn't feel like enough. You know what I mean? Like it's, he used to compare the end of the season like you're running on a treadmill and then it goes off and it's hard to slow yourself down. I feel that way about his career. It's just so friggin' abrupt.
I will also say people like him a lot more that he's not wearing our colors anymore. Towards the end with the Patriots, when he got his last one, okay, people started to acknowledge it. But the Bucks, it's a ticker tape parade every time they talk about him. We were dealing with Deflategate. No one would give him credit. Sal Pal saying he couldn't sell Ugg boots anymore because nobody trusted him. Nobody wanted to give the Patriots credit ever. And then he leaves, and oh my God, he's better than Jordan. He's the greatest athlete of all time. He deserves it, but he wasn't getting it when he was with us like that, the praise.
Yeah. Oh, and the fact that nobody will let you bring up the Deflategate thing when for years they said that's the reason for all of his success. And then the league said, oh, we're going to test the footballs going forward. It's all about the integrity of the game. And we're going to release that data. Crickets.
Yeah.
You're going to be bringing the balls out to the field in a Brinks truck with like armed guards. And the following year, the officials left the game balls in their hotel in Boston, and the state police had to bring them. And I said, so explain Brady's success when he can't cheat anymore. And Oh, we're not talking about that anymore. No, we are. And I feel like you and
Well,
I
it's
are
he
like
left.
the last
Yeah,
two
no, he
guys in
left.
America.
So he's left. So that when people just didn't like the Patriots. And by the way, I get it to a degree. Anytime you win that much, you get a target on your back. But it is crazy how every controversy just kind of went away the second that Brady left. It's like no one talks about it anymore. Were you glad he retired, Jerry?
I am. Yeah,
Yeah, me
because
too.
the success down in Tampa was killing me. And my default setting was to root against him in every game, and then he'd win me over, in the course of it. And this last game, especially when it's 27-3, and everybody in America is making the same joke. Oh, it's 27-3. Brady can't possibly come back from this, sarcastically, because you knew he was going to.
That would have been a
news
disaster,
history.
Jerry, if they came back and won that game, that goes on his all-time highlight reel, and we got to deal with that. Like, that's what I'm saying, 28-3.
Right.
And then they got this game with this gross colored team. So I'm glad they lost that. Thank you, Matt Stafford, for that throw at the end of the game. That would have been a problem. I thought he'd come back because the way they came back in that game, he's probably sitting there and be like, I should have 8 rings. Like, I mean, they just came out so slow. And I think they probably beat the 49ers. He's in another Super Bowl. So you're right. I think there's something very wrong in Tampa Bay because they still are like a premier team. And if he's a quarterback, maybe the Super Bowl favorite. So, something has to be very wrong.
Yeah, they would have hosted the championship game. And they weren't going to lose to either of those teams. Like, none of them played an especially great game. So we'd be talking about him in the Super Bowl again. As it was, 22 years in the league, he went to 10 Super Bowls. Think about that's insane. There are guys in the NBA who don't shoot free throws at that percentage, and it's impossible to do. I mean, somebody was it Nate Newton from the Cowboys, like, won 5 rings, and we were like astonished because he did it with 2 different teams. Brady gets 7, and no one's going to touch that. And I will say
even
this.
Mahomes. I remember at one point I was trying to find the tweet today. I couldn't find it. I think it was his wife. It was when comparing Mahomes and Brady, and she's like, the only reason Brady has more rings is he's been in the league longer. And it's like, what? Mahomes, I mean, that is a franchise that, he made plays that I don't know I've ever seen Brady make, like it down the stretch. And the situation, they lost the game at the end of the first half when they didn't score going in, and the way he played at the end, Brady just never did that. Ever. Yeah. The moment was never too big.
100%. And Mahomes is realizing firsthand how hard it is. And a great comp on this is you take Aaron Rodgers and go back before him, Brett Favre's whole career. 2 of them, first ballot Hall of Famers for sure, 3 MVPs for each of them, I think. And they have 2 Super Bowls between them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Over a 30-year stretch.
Which is why you need everything, which is why you need the coach, the quarterback, because you look at the Bengals. Yeah, Joe Burrow played great. The defense won that game. I mean, the defense gave up 3 points, second half overtime, got the ball back. So you look at Josh Allen. I mean, they couldn't stop him. But their defense couldn't stop the Chiefs either. You need everything. Brady's the greatest to do it. I still think Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. And they had the Patriots. I mean, they had everything. So those defenses were bad mamma jammas back in their heyday. I mean, they had Brady, and then they'd have like the best defense in the league. So put those together, you got a million Super Bowls.
Yeah, and special teams and
all of it.
Never like all pro receivers, not for the championship teams ever, nor should there have been. He didn't need them. That's how good he wasn't. Last thing, the game up here when Tampa came up here in week 4, that weirdly gives me like a sense of closure. I was dreading that game. Now I'm so happy that they played it, even if the Pats lost, because the story that Belichick went there after the game into the Bucs visitors locker room, and the 2 of them like talked it out for like an hour.
Yeah, and the score was irrelevant in hindsight. Like, I was there. That was one of the best perks I've gotten since doing that. Mr. Kraft invited me to watch it with him, and make no mistake, they're rooting as hard for the Patriots as anyone could be. I think he loves Tom like a son, but everyone's on the Patriots. In hindsight, didn't matter who won or lost that game. And I agree with you. The conversation at the end went well, and there'll be a huge, I don't want to say healing, but he's a Patriot. He's a Patriot. He plays a whole career here. So he's definitely going to come back here and I'd like, as I always make fun of it, I'd like the 10-day contract thing where he retires a Patriot. I assume that's going to happen. I can't imagine there's not something like that that's going to happen.
Yeah. The only reason it wouldn't is if Brady says, I don't want the attention or something, because, it had to be emotional for him to leave. The whole idea, like he went to Mr. Kraft's house and the two of them had this like heart to heart, and then they called Belichick and that's how he announced it. Didn't do that for Bruce Arians, but I love the fact that he did it here. So
yeah,
this was a great conversation. There's nobody I'd rather be talking to about this until you flexed on me that Mr. Kraft invited you. And
that's one of my all-time perks. One of my all-time perks. I think not only that, Jerry, he sent the helicopter for me. I landed on the stadium. People were like, wait, was that you in the helicopter? And then after the game, they gave me the secret escape under the. Oh, it was, other than winning the game, it's one of the best experiences I've ever had.
I'm living a life of quiet desperation. I got invited into his office at the Super Bowl, got to meet him and the family, and it was great. But now this kills me. All right. Well, thanks for ruining everything. No, Dave, thanks for your time. I know you got pizza to go review. We got other guests coming up, but thanks. It's always a pleasure. Let's do it soon.
All right. Talk to you later, Jerry.
Fights. You know what? I'm a man of very few regrets, but one that I will take to the grave, I will never get over, was sitting in a broadcast booth, a terrestrial radio booth in Brighton, watching live while you and Dave and some others got arrested on behalf of Tom Brady. And I wanted really badly to be there with you. And my co-hosts were looking at me like, this is the stupidest stunt of all time. And I was like, I think it's kind of awesome. And I really wish I was with them. And you know me, so you know that with this, lithe swimmer's body, I wouldn't last a minute in a Manhattan lockup.
Well,
I'd be Bella the Ball.
We weren't really ready for it either. But I appreciate that you liked it, because most people did not like it, I don't think. And we also did not know at all what we were getting into with that one. It went, we were prepared to get arrested, but we didn't realize how arrested we were getting, if that makes sense.
Tell me how arrested you got, because I've seen the documentary, but for people who don't know like the real inner workings of the stories, was it horrifying? I mean, it wasn't just a misdemeanor charge or whatever. They roughed you up or what?
No, it wasn't. So the everything is as I remember it. And we went down. I honestly don't remember what month it was. I believe we got an M, so either March or May. And we went down. And we were prepared to get arrested. I had actually called my uncle, who, is my lawyer, so to speak, but he's my uncle who's a lawyer. And I was like, because I was supposed to go to Jamaica on Friday, and it was earlier in the week. And I was like, hey, Johnny, I'm going to get arrested tonight. Does that mess with my status to go to Jamaica on Friday? And he was like, no, but I recommend not getting arrested. And I was like, nah, cat's out of the bag on that one. We're done here. And he's like, all right. I mean, like, he's like, yeah, you'll probably get released, because we knew what we were gonna get arrested for. He didn't think he was gonna go murder somebody. And he's like, you'll just get released. You'll be able to travel still. You're not allowed to leave the state or whatever. So we're like, all right. So we stayed in the hotel that night, and then next morning went in, got arrested, and they really didn't want to arrest us. I will give the NFL credit there. They're not the NFL. It was the security guards. They were like, dude, can you just get up and leave? And we were pretty pot committed to that. And then I think even the cops said the same thing. I think even the cops were like, dude, if you guys just get up, you can walk out of here. And we were like, no, take us to jail.
Yeah, we'll get up when you drop the charges against Tom Brady.
Right, exactly.
I'm sure they said the same thing during the freedom marches in Selma, Alabama. But those brave souls changed the world. I just compared you guys to MLK.
And it was an apt comparison, Jared. An apt comparison.
You're all heroes who deserve the schools closed on your birthday.
And so we ended up, they get us all up because we were handcuffed together. And then that, they said, was adding a charge of resisting arrest. They're like, just so you know, this isn't just trespassing now because you're handcuffed together. You're resisting arrest because we can't arrest you like this. So they had to cut us out of the cuffs or whatever they did. I forget. Maybe we had the key on us. And they get us out of the cuffs, arrest us, take us down to jail. Now, when we got to jail, jail. We got to jail. What we had not really game planned for was that, unfortunately, I forget, in the months prior, there had been multiple, I believe, New York police officers slain in the line of duty. When there was that guy who went on like Instagram Live, I think, right? And so we had raised a lot of money for the police officers, Barstool Sports had. And the precinct that we were brought to had our check on the desk. And they were like, oh, you guys are unbelievable. Like, we couldn't, like they were taking pictures of us. They were thrilled to have us in their precinct. And so then from then on, we were like, all right, we think we're good. Like, they're probably going to be pretty nice to us here because we've raised money and the stoolies have been very helpful. And we were right and we were wrong. So there were whispers that they were going to let us go. And at that point, we were all talking to each other like, hey, we go radio silent. If they let us go, like we go back to the hotel, we get some room service, but we do not say that we're out. We say we did the full night in the clink. And then that becomes pretty clear that wasn't going to be a possibility, that it was too late in the day. We like just crossed the threshold, I guess. We're like, if you get arrested at like in the morning, they can probably get you out. But we got arrested at like 2 p.m. I want to say something along those lines. Felger and Maz were on. So later than that, let's call Jerry, you were on. Let's call it 3, 4 o'clock. And that's too late in the day to see a judge. So they're like, we can't get you out. You're going to have to stay here. So we were like, all right, but they're going to take care of us. And they did their best for a while. They're like, we're not going to put you in a cell with an axe murder. At first, because everyone had already seen their judge and gotten out, we were the only ones. We all had our own cells. And that's when the infamous, one of my all-time favorite moments happened. Me, Gaz, and Dave are all talking. I forget what order the three of us are in, right? And we're all talking about God knows what. I'm probably just reminiscing about what a great stunt this is. And then we hear a fart ricochet off a metal toilet, just like a right. And we were like, what the fuck was that? And Dave goes, Hank, are you shitting? And very bewildered, Hank's like, yeah. And from the end of the cell hallway, where we thought we were the only 4 in there, someone just yells out, N-word, what? And this dude was like, bro, I've been in jail like 3 times this week, and I've never heard of someone taking a shit in a holding cell. Like Hank had not even considered emptying his bowels before he went out to get arrested. It was just...
Hank, they have these toilets with no like toilet paper and like no cover, and Hank took a shit. And I do remember even like one of the true criminals was like stunned that somebody would go, he's like, what? Who just took a shit? Like, it almost got like Hank's street cred. They're like, who the fuck took a shit in this thing?
No shyness either, right? Like, not, you know what I mean? I mean, we've all stood at a urinal and had a guy standing next to us, and all of a sudden we can't produce a stream.
Right.
You get inside your own head. But it just buckle hit the floor.
Dude, I'm sure it was much longer in my mind, much longer in reality. But in my mind, we were in that jail cell for fucking 15 minutes before Hank took a shit. Not even. Like, he was holding it until we got to jail. Where it's like, I can't wait to shit in prison just because he wanted to tell a story of it.
For the few do your pod listeners who have never been arrested, and I think we may have a couple with clean records. I spent 15 years working in a courthouse, and I can promise you the toilet's just right there. Like, there's not like a divide or whatever. There's zero privacy because they don't want you like killing yourself or whatever. So, you know, there's somebody with a monitor watching him drop a deuce.
Yeah.
Taking the Browns to the Super Bowl. Oh,
But then as the day
scary at all at any point where you like, I'm nervous. I'm going to get, you know, I'm going to end up getting the shit beat out of me by a stranger or whatever.
No, because we were in our own cell for most of the day. And then as the night progressed and people get more arrested more often at night, the cells started to fill up. And so we no longer had our own cells, and they were kind of almost playing like moving chess pieces with us, like trying to keep us as close together rather than with everyone else getting arrested in Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah.
And they actually said for a while they thought they were going to have to send us to the Tombs, which I don't know much about. I've heard it mentioned on Law and Order. I hear it's not the place you want to go.
Yeah, just the name alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't build a resort casino and call it the Tombs.
Right. And so they're moving us around, and Dave and Gaz end up bunking up together, and then me and Hank end up bunking up together. And again, this is just the beauty of Henry Lockwood. And I'm moving into his cell, and I didn't know what to expect because it's cinder block walls and then a cell in front. So I haven't seen Hank in hours. So they're moving me into his cell. I turn the corner to see him. He's chilling on the bench, shirtless, because it was hot as fuck. So it must have been Meg. It was hot as fuck. And shirtless, and he's got his sock on, but his shoes are off, and his feet are just up on the toilet. And he's just like, "What's up, man?" I was like, "Dude, you are comfortable. You are like, you have moved into prison. You are not. This is not just a pop in. You're not asking if you can take stuff out of the fridge. Still, you own this house. This is where you live."
He's the big man in the yard. He's the one who gets to lift the weights and everyone like. That's, all right, because I every time I think of this story, I immediately go to the part in Dirty Work where Artie Lang and Norm Macdonald are arrested. And these guys take Norm off camera, and he comes back pulling up his pants, going, "You get a load of these jokers? You got a lot of growing up to do." Absolutely ridiculous. It's the lack of respect that hurts the most. Well, the other thing hurts the most. The lack of respect hurts the second most. But I'm glad that didn't happen to you, and it shouldn't happen to anybody, kids.
Oh, we did have this dude next to us, the diaper boy. Diaper boy. Hank will tell you about diaper boy too, I'm sure. This dude, we'd actually seen him in the main holding cell earlier. Just like you would see human who like they have fleas. Like this dude had fleas. Like he was in the corner just talking to himself. He was scratching. He obviously could have been coming down, but I like to think of fleas better. And he was yelling sporadically throughout the night, "I'm the diaper boy. I'm covered in rashes. I'm the diaper boy." And Hank and I were like, "What the fuck is happening next door to us right now?" And then in the morning, when they're taking us all to court, they put you on kind of a whatchamacallit, when you're all handcuffed together.
Chain gang.
Chain gang. They put you on kind of a chain gang and walk you to the courthouse. And I end up next, or I forget, it was either me or Hank. We end up next to Diaper Boy. And whoever it was doing our best to not let our hand get handcuffed right to him on account of the fleas, most likely. And we're just like, no. And eventually succumbed. But it was, and then once we got to court, honestly, the person who loved this bit the most was probably the judge. She kind of just like chuckled and was like, I don't know. Don't get arrested again in 6 months. The charges are dropped. And we're like, all right. But that was the tale. Never in danger. I don't think.
So you don't have a criminal record as we're currently speaking.
Well,
with respect to this,
I think okay. I've done 4 nights in jail. I think I am clean on all fronts. I think 3 of them I was under 18, and one of them, this one, I think it got expunged after 6 months.
Okay, so to circle back to the topic at hand, at what point in your life did you realize that Tom Brady is the man that you would risk a criminal record for?
Super early. Probably, I wouldn't say the first Super Bowl, but I would say by 2003, probably, because I'm glad we have like different generations of people here, because I was just like old enough to remember being the lovable losers, where like there are now younger Pats fans and Boston fans who were just winners their whole lives. I remember like my best friend growing up was a Yankees fan. I had like some friends who were from New York, and like I was just constantly made fun of. It was just like, oh, Boston sucks, you're the losers, this and that. Even after 2003, and it really didn't stop until 2004 when the Pats and the Sox won. But it was that's how you were raised. You were raised as a loser who truly believed in curses, that we were a cursed people and a cursed region, and we would never win and nothing good would ever happen to us. And I just have enough of that to remember that. And Tom Brady is the God who came down and touched us with his hand and said, you people can have freedom and happiness and joy in your lives now. And from then on, I was like, yeah, I'll die for that.
And so how old were you in 03 and 04? Like
I
approximately?
was, let's see, I'm August 88. So I'm trying to do some quick math. Let's call it 14.
14. Okay. So, yeah, you have a childhood institutional memory of when everything around here sucked. Whereas my man, Nick here, I was his age when the Patriots won the first playoff game of my life. They beat the Jets in a wild card game. And I said, I can die happy now. I've only seen them go to
game
to win a playoff game.
Oh,
right.
Scary.
Because prior to that, they had been to the playoffs a couple of times, but when I was a kid, they won the division for the first time, and that team was a wagon. They were equipped to be good for years to come. And the coach, Chuck Fairbanks, quit on them to go back to college. While he was under contract to the Patriots, he was in his office making phone calls, recruiting guys when he was supposed to be getting ready for a playoff game. So they got blown out. And this is why I am the way I am, because I'm that guy.
I didn't
who grew up
realize
in the
that. That's
Depression,
a real like
and
rags to riches story.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the guy who can't. I grew up in the Depression, and now I'm doing well, but I'm still saving tinfoil because you never know. There might be a shortage. We couldn't get it back when I was a youngin' like you kids are today or whatever. So, Dave had the same answer, that 03, 04. He won his first 10 postseason games. We all remember the interception he threw in Denver that went back up 100 yards for a score. Yeah, that was his first loss. And it was probably around then that we started to realize this guy is metahuman. Yeah, there was a lot of factors there.
Which is even dumb of us. It should have been earlier. It shouldn't have taken that long. It should have been the drive in the first Super Bowl. Whereas John Madden, rest in peace, who did get pretty lucky, by the way, in his passing, where everyone was just showing the clip of what Tom Brady just did, gave me chills. Because guess what? For the minute before that, John Madden's like, take a knee. What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
This is nuts.
I don't get it, pal. I don't get what you're doing. and Charlie Weiss famously pulled Brady over and he said, don't do anything dumb. Don't take any chances. We're happy to play for overtime if we have to. And Bledsoe, and we all know, he made it clear in that first episode of Man in the Arena how he resentful of his situation, but he didn't take it out on Brady.
Yeah.
He pulled him aside and said, fuck it, just get out there and sling it.
Just fucking sling it, yeah.
There was one moment, though, when it started to dawn on me that this guy is not of this earth. And if you watch that clip, and I don't know if I realized it, if I clocked this in real time, or if it was from watching the replay over and over again, but when he spiked the ball to stop the clock for Vinatieri's kick, watch it again. Ball bounces off the ground, and he just kind of casually puts his hand out and catches it on his fingertips like it was a balloon at a kid's party, And I'm like, in that scene, it was like Joe Montana, needing a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and everyone's all tense, and he was in his huddle, and he looked at the guys, and he goes, hey, look, guys, there's John Candy. There's Uncle Buck sitting up in the stands. Wow, that's neat. And at the time, I didn't know if Brady would ever be successful again, but you look back now and you go, he just had that ability to have his heart rate at next to zero while everybody else is losing their friggin' mind.
It's a pretty apt to use that word again, the second time in an interview, for right now with Patrick Mahomes, where he has now hit Brady's 24, or not 24 age, but 4 years as a starter. And you see even that flatline heart rate. You see that yesterday where Mahomes takes a sack for 15 yards before Tom Brady doesn't take that sack in a million years. And I don't want to start with those comparisons already, but I just want to say I am enjoying watching Kansas City collapse and become a hated franchise because they don't warn you about that one. They tell you the wins are great. They don't tell you how much you have to battle every single day because everyone else hates you so much.
Right. It's the Dark Knight. You live long enough to be a hero. I mean, you die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Exactly.
I was telling Nick off the air, I was at a crowded bar, towny bar, local here, and filled with just, Patriots fans to a person, everyone was screaming for Cincinnati
Right.
yesterday. And I imagine we're not alone. Like that was happening all around the country. And, you know, it's fun to be on the other side of that for a while, because with Brady's success came the kind of hatred you rarely see of any superstar of his caliber.
That's actually why if I want to find silver linings in him going to Tampa, I feel like it was nice for him to get it, and it was happening a little bit, but not so much in New England towards the end of his career. I feel like once there was that shift for him not being a Patriot anymore, people could fully embrace and be like, okay, we like him. He's personable. He's handsome. He's everything we want in a superstar. He's incredibly talented. And now, because he's not in the evil empire, we'll have 1 year or 2 years where we're really heaping praise on him. Like it seemed like there was a real shift in how like his public perception going from New England to Tampa. So I'm happy he got those 2 years of just being a beloved celebrity rather than someone who had to. It was really 50-50 at best.
Yeah. Do you remember when it all transitioned to that? Because, you know, 01, when they win it all, they were America's darlings.
Right.
You know, the Cinderella team and everyone, and it lasted like, it felt like 20 minutes. And I remember being really unnerved about how all of a sudden everyone despised them. And I didn't get it. I eventually learned to embrace it. I mean, right up to when the Deflategate story first broke, it was Mortenson's tweet was like at 11 o'clock at night. And so I said, I got to get up early. I got to get ahead of this. I have to take a position on this. And I wrote this thing on EEIs.com about, you know, if as a Patriots fan, embrace it. If they're going to be the wrestling heel, just let's be the bad guy. And as I click send on that, Minahan's on the radio saying, if I'm a Patriots fan, if I'm Thornton right now, I'm embracing this. And I said, okay, I've done the right thing. And I think it just made us all more emotionally attached to Brady, that you were constantly defending him. If that,
yeah.
that
Oh
makes
yeah.
sense.
100%. That was your guy. You'd go. And I think those irons were forged in 03, 04. Like we'll do whatever. We'll die for you as we started it. So if I'm going to die for you, it's easy for me to fight with literally everyone on the internet and in the world over Twitter for you.
And the frustration is that his is a story that we used to love in America, right?
Mhm.
The guy, it's like a Superman story. Like he comes from nothing, you know, comes out of nowhere, gets his opportunity, you know, fights for truth and justice or whatever, and becomes great. Like that's the kind of thing you used to hold up as an example to kids and go, look at this. You can struggle to start in college. You can be the seventh quarterback taken in the 6th round, and you can go on to greatness. And instead it was all like, screw him. He's friggin' he's had it all handed to him. He's lucky. He cheats. He whatever. And you're right. Now it's going to be nothing but accolades. But I hope you save the receipts the way I have.
Yeah. I think it all turned for him when he started banging Tara Reid. That's when the public perception was like, all right, fuck this guy. Because at that time she was like Van Wilder, she was America's sweetheart. I was like,
yeah,
I can't have everything.
Oh,
he's stuck with a Brittany Matthews. Maybe everyone likes him still. It's like, well, we still got to go home to that.
He bought low on her and sold high. And then within months of him dumping her, she was getting the botched surgeries and everything, and having like a boob hang out on a red carpet and not know it. And then it was Sharknado.
Yeah.
Remember when the first controversy involving Brady was he got Bridget Moynihan pregnant?
Yeah.
Like, that was shocking to people.
And that
Like,
was one people still tried to, and a particular sect of people who I maybe have a podcast with who try and get under my skin. But that was one people used for a while until the emails came out. This is what I always pulled up. The emails of when Brady was getting the it was during Deflategate when it was the when we got worked about a white pool cover.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
how much you were spending on
it was
that.
like very innocuous emails. And then there was a parenting website that wrote an article on his emails, him and Bridget Moynihan's emails back and forth. And it was like, it might have been like parenting.com. And it was like, if you are going to co-parent, this is how it's done. It was like, they were just glowing. They're like, this is amazing. We've never seen two parents co-parent like this. They're so great. They're so like loving. They're so focused on their child. And I was like, what else can the guy do? How can he be so good at fucking everything?
200 of his emails, I think it was, were leaked out. And if there was anything remotely negative or controversial in there, that would have been made national news. The best they could come up with was him saying that I think Peyton Manning's going to be gone in a couple of years, and I can play probably till I'm 45.
Yeah, he might have been
And
right.
It was dead balls accurate on both of those, and they were trying to make that out like it was negative. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, stop me when I say something that's not true. So, do you have a particular like favorite Brady moments, whether it's his career or off the field or whatever one that you when you think of him 5 years from now, you're going to immediately go to?
Honestly, and I first of all, it's so hard because like when working on the internet with it, we're like you get conflated with like the real moments versus the ones you like to use the most. Like Brady dancing at Carnival, one of my all-time favorite Brady moments.
Yeah.
Brady going down the slide, one of my all-time favorite Brady moments. Brady sitting courtside with the Bieber hair, all-time favorite. But I think one of my this is very bizarre, and it probably coincides with the fact that my dad like loves the Mookie Betts, Bill Buckner picture because he was at that game and it represents, and my dad's a Red Sox fan, obviously, but it represents like some change in his life and some shift kind of deal. Brady looking down after throwing the pick six in Atlanta. That is one for me that for some reason sticks because like everything he battled back, that was the end of his career. That was it. That was it. That was done. And the dude had another Hall of Fame career after that.
Yep. That famous Boston Globe sports page that
exactly
got released down in Florida. I think it was only the Florida edition, and it was like something like the party's over, or whatever the headline was, and it's Brady sitting there staring, and you can see the pick six going the other way, and that was legendary.
And then after that, if we're going the other way, obviously the rings pictures and stuff like that, the gifts of him dancing with the rings at the, I believe that was after the Atlanta Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It might have been after the Rams one, I forget. But,
yeah, the crying Brady meme is a classic.
Yeah.
When he had the long hair and the weird Dutch boy haircut that he was rocking or whatever.
He's lived long enough as a quarterback. He's lived 100 memeable lives with all his different looks and hairstyles and situations he found himself in.
When he was drafted, the president of the United States was Bill Clinton. Process that for a minute. Hank, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Since you just joined us, I'll tell you, Fights told us all the stories about lockup, including Diaper Man. Do you guys stay in touch?
Diaper Boy? No, I haven't heard from Diaper Boy since.
Oh yeah, back then he was Diaper Boy. Now he's Diaper Man. That was a lot of years ago.
Yeah, we might have to check the prison record to see if there's any reports of him there. Go take a visit.
So, what's your reaction to Brady? And I'll start off with you the way we started off with Dave. Do you think that this is actually happening, or that for the first time in recorded history, Schefter got one wrong?
I think it is what's happening. And I don't know how I'm sure you explain your thoughts too, but I was happy that he retired. Like once, obviously, you owe him so much. You love him like he's the greatest of all time. You appreciate everything he did for the Patriots and New England and stuff. But once he went to Tampa Bay, it was like you're happy for him. But at the same time, the more he won in Tampa Bay, the more like haters and stuff would try and be like, oh, well, he was better in Tampa Bay or like whatever. So it's like once he retired from Tampa Bay, I was just happy that was over. He got, one championship is fine, 6 in New England. So I was more like relieved. I was emotional. It was more just like going back and thinking about when he started and in 2001, I was like 8 years old and just being like, wow, I'm 28 years old now. Like that. It's more just that his retirement kind of kicked off those reflection thoughts.
Yeah. Were you pulling for him in Tampa, or were you like me, like just wanting, I wanted him to fail, even if he personally played well. I just didn't want to see him bring that winning gene to the loserist franchise in the NFL, and I resented the hell out of it. He kept winning me over, but ultimately, I still am loyal to the team I'm loyal to, and I wanted to see them succeed. And it's not enough that they succeed; others must also fail.
Right. I was more on that path. I think Feitelberg was more of like a Tampa Bay fan and rooting for the Bucks. I was more on the lines of like I wanted him to do well, and when people, when I would see people trash him, like instinctively you get that like whoa, like you're like you don't know what you're talking about. So I didn't want them to do badly, but I definitely didn't want them to win the Super Bowl this year. I didn't really want them to win last year, although I bet on them, but still I'm kind of in the same boat where I was like, so that's why when it retired, I wasn't like sad that he retired, or I wasn't like, oh no, Tom Brady's not playing football again. I was like, all right, this is over. Like now we can just kind of enjoy the greatness, and everyone's gonna remember the New England stuff, and hopefully not a lot of people remember that he even played for Tampa Bay.
I hope so. And I did you see this coming? I mean, it was weird to me over maybe the end of December, but really once the playoffs began, that it all just kind of happened at once, where, beginning with, and we mentioned this earlier, how he kicked back the release date of his final episode of his series, but then former teammates started coming out saying, oh, I think he's going to retire. I mean, it was Rob Ninkovich said it, Christian Fourier said it, and there was just too much smoke for there not to be fire there. But I allowed for the fact it might have just been hot takes, whatever. But clearly somebody knew that he was not enjoying playing football anymore.
I honestly think the documentary thing has a lot of weight. Like I first saw it on Twitter and it was kind of like a joke, or I thought it was a joke. I was like, oh, this is a funny, like dumb storyline. Like he's delaying his thing and then 2 days passed and it still wasn't out. And I was like, that is kind of weird. And the way it leaked, it makes sense that, he's got an inner circle, but when you're making a documentary and stuff like that, there's a lot more people involved, a lot more ways where it can get leaked. So it makes sense where it's like, if that's what they were doing, it wasn't probably someone in Tom's like inner circle, but it was someone that's maybe a little bit more fringe that leaked it. But it was like a confirmed, that's why they went with it. Cause it was like, I'm probably working on this documentary or movie or whatever it is. So like it's happening. That's why Schefter's doubling down and tripling down and
right. Because
and like knows
it appears on ESPN Plus. So,
right.
The timing is perfect here. The team loses. So he says, this is it. Now I'm going to film my little farewell thing. It goes to ESPN. Somebody looks at it. Hey, get me Schefter and get me Darlington. I have something to show them. And the rest is history. And nobody, not Brady's agent, not Tom Sr., no one has used the words, oh no, he's coming back. It's just, well, it's a business cycle and the scheduling, and he will make his decisions when he makes his decision. So yeah, otherwise this whole podcast has been a complete waste of our valuable time, but I'd be talking about Brady anyway. So
right. I don't know about you, and I know this is a Tom Brady appreciation podcast. I thought the documentary was relatively disappointing. I watched every episode, but they weren't that great.
It's a lot of like well-trodden ground.
Yeah, well, that's why the first three was like, that's just you're just watching America's Game. Like I've seen those a million times, but even the newer ones, obviously I hadn't seen but still.
Yeah,
like, do your job is way better.
Yeah. He always managed to work in a couple things you didn't know. All right, here's what Bledsoe was talking about. All right, take the first one where Brady admitted in the AFC title game at Pittsburgh that he was feeling the pressure.
Right.
Probably for the only time in his life. You know what I mean? That was the one where he got hurt, and Bledsoe comes in and he throws a touchdown to David Patton and finishes the game. But it was kind of alarming to hear him say, like, the moment was kind of overwhelming for me, however he phrased it. But yeah, the rest of it is, got the America's Game, got the 3 games to glory. Right. Everyone's got the DVDs that everyone gets for like, Christmas or whatever. It's weird.
I enjoyed them, but there was like 3 of them that I turned on and fell asleep before it was over. And I finished them the next day, but it wasn't like on the edge of my seat. Like this is great.
Yeah. The thing that I did take away that I appreciate him making it for this reason is, if you're someone that, was really bothered by this narrative that he hated it here and Belichick is miserable to work for and he couldn't wait to get out, you realize how much he appreciates everything that they accomplished together, and that there's some real genuine affection there.
Right.
Which I imagine is going to come out if and when he signs the 1-day contract to retire as a Patriot. God, make that happen.
The Belichick statement is going to be unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's at his best. Warm, sentimental Belichick is my favorite Belichick. Like whether he's calling Teddy Bruschi the perfect player or, falling all over himself about Troy Brown or whatever. And this one has been building up for a long, long time. And,
when when he wants to give the attention to detail, he really, really does. And this one will be like, it'll probably be like multiple pages.
Do you get the feeling that he was, as much as he loved Belichick, that he quickly grew sick of Bruce Arians horseshit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element to that. I think there's an element of kind of, and it's like a natural thing that a lot of people go through, I think, where it's like you don't have, at your job, you don't have the power control that you wish you had, and then you get it and you realize it's a lot of shit to deal with that. You're like, oh, I kind of liked it when, I didn't have to worry about all this shit. And like this guy's being super annoying and blaming me for losses and stuff. I definitely think, there was some, he got something out of it, but there was definitely some give back where he like had to deal with a lot more shit.
So how's history gonna look back on him? Do you think they're gonna talk about the deflated footballs and I don't know, the weirdo medicine and the sketchy TB12 fitness stuff, or do you think it's all just going to be, this kind of rewriting of history, like, oh no, we loved him all the time, he was great, we really admired him? Or
I think it probably will, just because if you think about, watching a game, or when they're going to be showing quarterbacks and they're going to be showing how their numbers compare to the greats, and Tom's going to be at the top of those lists by like a wide margin, where like there's nothing you can say. There's no real knocks you can throw on him versus his competition of quarterbacks, where it's like he's the best and it's not even close. Yeah. And I don't think that seems like more of a thing that ESPN and those people do for like the day-to-day ratings that they know is going to drive engagement and stuff. But when it's all said and done, like they're going to present him as the greatest because they have.
So we're not going to be hearing about how he destroyed his phone.
No.
Or the rest of us call it upgrading.
Yeah.
But that I was in this documentary called 4 Games in Fall. It's available pretty much everywhere. And it tells a whole story of like how the NFL manipulated the media and how they employ these like sketchy fake science for hire firms or whatever. And it's, it was made by a woman who doesn't even care about football. She was just talking about media and the message and whatever. And that was a brilliant hit piece. Stephen A. Smith goes on one day and say, the NFL wanted his phone and he destroyed it. And that's all anyone heard. Not, well, he should have walked in and said, hey, you see this phone? You want it? You're not entitled to it. End of discussion. But that was the biggest story in America. It almost went to the Supreme Court, and now it's forgotten because he won in Tampa with this friendly team and he's polished his image or whatever. But I think Patriots fans will never forget that shit. It's one of the reasons we love him, even disproportionate to what he accomplished here.
Absolutely. And I obviously produce, part of my take, which is a general football podcast, and the fans like hate it. And Deflategate is one of those things where people are like, oh, why are you even bringing up Deflategate? It's like, when you really think about how crazy it was and how much they were trying to take him down every single day, it still like gets me mad. It still gets me fired up. And people want to just like be like, oh, it wasn't even a big deal. Like, why are you even still bringing it up? It's like, it is insane what they did, and how that whole, it was like a year, almost 6 months, 8 months. It was just every day. It was chaos. And it was just like, people were making up, it went national. That's where it was like, local news programs with like the weatherman and like the desk anchor were like holding footballs and being like, oh, Tom Brady deflated footballs. Look at this. It's like, what are we doing?
Oh yeah.
It drives me crazy still.
That
really pissed me off. I think you mentioned it in one of your blogs or on Twitter that they didn't really get into that with that episode of the documentary, but like that is the one that I need all parties involved to be giving their honest opinions, and like, cause it still gives me a rotten taste in my mouth.
Yep. And it was the number one story in the country, like not on the sports news. It was leading the network newscast, and it was just nonsense. And even as I say this, like I'm thinking about everything that he accomplished with or without underinflated balls. And we don't want to get too bogged down in the math, but this is my shorthand of how you measure his excellence. There are 3 quarterbacks that ever lived who won 190 or more games. So that's Favre, Manning, and Brady. Brady just retired with 193 more wins than losses. He's 193 over 500. Drew Brees won 181. So you could subtract his entire total from Brady's win total, and Brady's still over 500. And Brees is the fourth highest winning quarterback of all time. He has as many wins at home as John Elway, and as many wins on the road as Terry Bradshaw, both of them first ballot Hall of Famers and shit. It's unbelievable. It's looking at Wayne Gretzky's numbers, and you say, okay, the number 2 guy would have to triple his goal total to even tie him or whatever. The 700 touchdowns. I mean, you can just go on and on. When you compare him to other quarterbacks, they're just going to have to put a pin in his numbers. And I don't care if it's Mahomes or, Josh Allen, they're all going to have to fight for number 2 because no one's going to approach this. Am I telling tales out of school?
No, absolutely not. And the good thing too, for his legacy's sake, is that there maybe maybe Mahomes will put the numbers up over time, but it's hard to imagine that he's going to get, 5 or 6 more Super Bowls. So even if, ultimately, even if by some miracle someone breaks a record or 2 or has better either wins or touchdowns or yards or whatever, they're not going to do it while winning that many Super Bowls. So it's he has everything. He's got it all. He's the perfect human.
And one last thought out of me before I give it to Nick and let you get back to your busy life, Hank, is forever, at least 10 years, people have been asking me, how do you think it's going to end with Brady? How do you think he's going to, is he gonna, the Patriots going to release him, whatever? And my point was always the same, just enjoy it while it lasts. What is this weird fixation on how it ends? If you give a kid a puppy, you don't say, someday that puppy's going to die, might get old and die, might get sick, might get hit by a car, but you just enjoy the puppy. And I like to think that I did, and you guys just enjoyed every minute that you had of this guy instead of worrying about minutia and I don't know, friggin' scandals and how it's going to end and whether his body language was unhappy or whatever. Do you guys feel like you got the most out of it you possibly could? Because his will not walk this way again.
I'm sure Nick is probably similar because I think he's a lot younger than me. But for me, like I said, I was 8 in 2001, and I vaguely remember watching some parts of the Super Bowl. I don't really remember much. I don't obviously remember any of the players or any of that stuff. But from that point on, it was every single week, it's we're the best team. We had the best quarterback. We're going to win every game. And that just gets ingrained in your brain. And that's why people are oh, Patriots fans are so cocky, so cocky, so cocky. But it's that was literally just how you were raised and how your life, it was Monday through Saturday. And then Sunday, the Patriots are going to play. Tom Brady's going to be unbelievable. We're going to win. We're definitely going to go to the playoffs. We're probably going to go to the Super Bowl. And you just become so accustomed to that. So I was never, that's an older thing. As you get older and you get in the media, as obviously I started working for Barstool, you see the narratives that the media comes up with to try and more just to have conversations and stuff. But it was never something I even thought about where it's Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, who should we have? Or is Bill bad for Tom or vice versa? It's no, I just loved watching the Patriots and I had the utmost confidence every single week because of Tom Brady and Bill. But Tom was the front man.
Yeah. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, I'm younger than you, Hank, and I was probably my first memory is probably 03, 04. I mean, I was 4 or 5 years old, but it's just I remember being there for those games. I don't really remember the game specifically. I wouldn't say I remember that until probably 07, 08 and on. But it's just it's crazy. The amount of we had 20 years of it, my entire childhood, my entire teenage years, and it was parallel following you guys. I watched you guys, I watched Patriots. It was everything. And then on top of that, it was, like you said, Monday through Friday, and then Sunday was Patriots, or Monday through Saturday. But throughout the week, then it was the Red Sox. So it was
right.
We had just everything. We're the best sports town ever.
Yeah.
Well, and when you combine the other thing too, that's interesting that, obviously ties into it is just, and you were there from the beginning as well, Jerry, is the butterfly effect of what if the Patriots had been the Browns for the last 20 years? Where is Barstool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would be working in a courthouse still, sleeping under a mountain of my kids' tuition bills and miserable every day and being threatened by detoxing opioid addicts. And it's insane. If you look at like there's a model of the cosmos that says that every decision sets off a different timeline and they all exist somewhere. And we live in the best of them all. And
Yes.
that would be the
Yeah.
worst. If they
Yes.
didn't draft Brady, or if Bledsoe doesn't get hit by Mo Lewis when he does, and they don't win that first Super Bowl, maybe they never win another. And like you said, we're Browns fans. Imagine that hell dimension.
Oh,
Spend
What-
the rest of your life there.
what's your favorite Super Bowl, Jerry?
Yeah, I was going to ask you for a great Brady moment. I'm glad you anticipated. I'm always going to go, as much as the first one, special for what it is, its uniqueness. It's always going to be that one against Seattle for me, because that was a great game. Those were two great teams. They were stacked on both sides of the ball. One team was about to turn into a dynasty. The other one was 10 years removed from winning one, and they rebooted it with, he was down by 10 in the fourth quarter. And I will tell you, that is comparable to being down 28-3, because that defense, the Legion of Boom, the year before, held the most prolific offense in NFL history to 8 points in the Super Bowl. And Brady scored 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers. And that to me will always be his greatest moment. How about you guys?
Yeah, mine is that Super Bowl as well. I mean, I was there. Actually, Dave made me pay for my ticket. That was how long ago it was. He made me pay him back and over, because I didn't have money. I didn't have $5,000 off the jump. I had to pay him back every couple weeks. And I think he stopped after a half of it probably. But we were there. It was, and obviously the most recent two, LA and Atlanta. After being at the Seattle one, we kind of had talked to, Stacey James, to the people, and got the passes to the party. We kind of knew if they won, we were going to go. This one was just, spur of the moment. We won. We're at the bar. I think Steve or Belichick's other son texted Dave and was like, "Hey, come to the hotel." It was just very spur of the moment. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know, we're at the hotel with the team partying, Rick Ross. It was just it was probably the best night of my life. Every time I think about the best nights of my life, it's the 3 Super Bowls that I was lucky enough to be at. And then there's a few other life moments, but those ones are top of the top. And that one was the first one, the most spontaneous, most fun. And just you couldn't believe it.
What about you, Nick? Favorite Super Bowl?
That's the same one for me. I mean, growing up and playing football, it was just the greatest game to watch there, because I had some of my favorite players, obviously, on the Patriots. I loved LeGarrette Blount. He was one of my favorite players on the Patriots. And that's when Donta was so good, and he was fucking legendary then. But I mean, both sides of the ball was fucking unbelievable. And then you had Marshawn, you had the fucking pass on the 2. You hand that to Marshawn, that game was, I don't want to say because I love that we won, but that game was fucking over.
Oh yeah. How about this favorite non-Super Bowl win by him? And I'm gonna go, and maybe this is recency bias, but I'm gonna go with the championship game at Kansas City.
Yes.
Where again, a dynasty that was about to begin and is still trying to become a dynasty, even though people talk about it like it's gonna be. In overtime of that one, he had 3 3rd and 10s and converted them all. They were on the 8-yard line at the end of regulation, and he needed, did they need 8 points? Was that one where they needed, or am I confusing it with the?
Yeah, no, they needed. It was. It might have been 28-3 too, but I think it might have been both.
And it was a pass he completed to Chris Hogan, and I might be conflating a few things, but it was on their 8-yard line, and it was 3rd and 10. And he hit him for 17 yards. And, it was just,
it was
whatever,
a tough throw.
It's insane against, exchanging haymakers with Patrick Mahomes the entire game. But in the end, on the road, that was when he famously said, "I know people say we suck." And people resentful, who said he sucks? No one said they suck. Kind of everybody had said that he was done. And him flexing in Kansas City in that environment with a laser pointer shining in his eyes, by the way.
One of the best, and it was the birth of that video of him and Gronk, which is if you can't, that's brings a smile to my face every time.
Bad boys.
I would say, how about this? My favorite non-playoff win was that first season with Randy Moss versus the Jets when it was like, oh my God, we're going to be the best team of all time. Like when they just threw 5 like 75-yard bombs and it was in back to back to back to back. And it was like, this is unbelievable. Because you didn't know
that was after Moss.
Is he going to be good? Is it going to be like this is going to be a distraction? It's like, oh no, like we're the best team of all time.
Yeah, and Moss had missed like preseason,
Right.
so we didn't really know what he had with him. And then one of those touchdowns was like 3 guys just fell like bowling pins around him in the end zone. That was great. I'll also give you the one against New Orleans, where the final drive with no timeouts, he completed one to Austin Collie, and then the touchdown was to Kembrell Tompkins.
Love Kembrell.
I was at that game.
Oh, no kidding. Did you leave?
Yeah, no, I was in the corner of the end zone actually when they caught the touchdown. It was awesome. That was show
ponies, unicorns. Yeah. Yep. And that night was David Ortiz hit the grand slam against Detroit. And we got that Viva shirt out of it because Torrey Hunter's legs were up in the air and the cop had his.
I actually was so drunk at the game. I like woke up and I missed the Red Sox game. I remember like that was like I was so happy at the Patriots game. I think we tailgated afterwards too. And I didn't make it. I didn't quite make it for the Red Sox game after, but it was great. It was a great way to wake up. I was like, oh my God.
We could have done this entire pod just in great Brady memories, but that's for the future. It's good to just kind of pull back and talk about the here and now and how this came to be. But God, nobody I would rather be talking to than the guys who went to jail.
I got one more thing for both of you guys. So obviously, hopefully he comes back to sign the 10-day contract. Where do you think that the 12 jersey flies? Obviously, it's going to go in the Hall of Fame Pro Shop, but do you think they put it next to the 6 banners up in the stadium?
Yeah. You know what? They've never done that before. They don't have a ring of honor. They just have the hall right next. Yeah. But, to me, there's this hierarchy of sports greatness. And the lowest level is All-Star Game. Then it goes up to like winning some individual awards, Gold Glove or whatever. Then it's MVP, then it's Hall of Fame, and the peak of it is statue worthy.
Yes.
Straight up, they should, like, as soon as he signs that 10-day contract, break ground, put it right next to the lighthouse or whatever. No sports figure has ever been more statue worthy.
What image do you want?
That's definitely not a Tampa jersey.
No. Yeah, I would have to really, really think about that, I think.
Or whenever he runs out of the tunnel, when he's like coming down to the fucking end zone, he's like this.
Yeah.
I guess it's which haircut you want.
Yeah.
Definitely not the shoulder length one. Not the one where he looked like he was balding back in his like early 20s. Yeah. Okay.
He looked like he was he was like fresh out of surgery on his face. It was a couple years where it was the Botox years.
Oh yeah. After they won it in so this is early 2002, there was a cover of People magazine. And they always have like whoever the celebrity is on the top or whatever. Then this little banner will be like some B story. And it was, I swear this is the quote, Tom Brady, those lips, that chin, that Super Bowl win, ! I'm like, what? This is a Patriots quarterback?
That's good.
Because my life prior to that was what 2020 looked like.
Right.
An ineffective quarterback playing in front of an empty stadium. And then this guy wins. The Snow Bowl was the last game in the old stadium. Also the best game ever played there. And this perfect metaphor for Brady, the team, the franchise, his whole future. The new stadium was being built up above it. Like that game was played in the literal shadows of the new one. And they open that one. And the first thing that they do is hang a banner.
Right.
You can't make it up. If you made this up, someone would say it's ridiculous. You couldn't make a Disney movie like this. People go cut the crap, It
would be cool if they did like a statue of every 5 years of Brady. So 4 different statues in one. like showing like the long hair to the short hair to
Like the
the
walking man evolution.
yeah, like that. Hopefully they don't
Uh,
get that anal beads like the NBA statue they just made.
Yeah.
or 6 of them, one for each Super
right.
Bowl. I think that would set a precedent that would absolutely belong, because the first one he was whatever 23, the second one he was whatever 42. I love it. Okay, well then the team has got all the direction that they need.
Yes.
Hire an artist and let's get cracking on this, fellas. Again, nobody I would rather be talking to than guys who gave up their freedom for the cause of justice in this case. And Hank, man, I appreciate you coming on. Let's do this again sometime,
No problem,
maybe when
Harry.
the season begins.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, Hank.
See ya.